What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday night. Your Buffalo Bills, fresh off of their bye week, getting back after it this weekend against the Los Angeles Chargers. And Justin Herbert, who our guest tonight, has some thoughts on later in the show. I am Matt Parrino. He is Ryan Talbot. This is the Shout Buffalo Bills Football Podcast, sponsored by Tops Friendly Market, your neighborhood store with more. Definitely head there for the game on Sunday. We're joined tonight by Joe Buscaglia. My man, every time you come on the show, I get so excited because I tweeted about it tonight. We spent a lot of time in practice just talking shop, going over everything in our notebooks and what we're seeing, and it's fun to bring that conversation to the podcast. So Joe Buscaglia of The Athletic, the Buffalo Beat, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I'm trying to think. The last time I was on, I was waxing poetic about why they should cut Trent Murphy, and that never happened, even though it probably should have. But hey, here we are.
I was going to say, I think, Ryan, both of us were right along that line with Joe that they probably should have moved on from Trent Murphy. And now we're sitting here, at this point of the season, and maybe AJ Epinesa, a couple splash plays here and there. Maybe if they'd moved on from Trent Murphy, his role would be bigger at this point.
Oh, it absolutely would be bigger at this point. I think you'd see more time from Daryl Johnson as well. You'd get some of those younger guys some reps where, I'm sure the thought process was Murphy as the veteran would bring more value, but he's been pretty hit and miss this season in terms of that. So they maybe did miss a chance to bring along some of that younger talent.
This is going to be a fun show. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the whole Murphy situation, after going back and pondering it, I think there was just this massive trickle-down effect from Star Lotulelei opting out, where Lotulelei opted out, which meant that Quentin Jefferson, who they had this idea for to be this hybrid defensive tackle, defensive end guy. Now that Lotulelei isn't at defensive tackle, that means they have to take Jefferson from the end spot and bring him inside. And by doing so, that opened up a spot in that defensive end rotation that they needed. And they didn't want to entrust it with Epinesa because Epinesa didn't look the part in the summer. So I think there was just a lot of things that happened for Murphy to be there. And he's just been the same guy as he has been the last 2 years. I mean, he's just an average defender, not really a great pass rusher, solid run defender. You know what you're getting with him, but that money could have been used elsewhere. I think we know that by now.
I want to get into some offensive stuff to start the show, but while we're here, let's get into this because we haven't talked to you since the summer. And one of the big observations I've had, and I think Ryan as well, is that, the loss of Star Lotulelei and the lack of replacing that specific role, I think has had a big impact on what the Bills have tried to do this year. What have you seen? I mean, you do the all 22, you watch the film every week. What have you seen for how they've tried to replace Star and how it's worked and whether it's worked?
They've been trying a lot of different things. I mean, at first it was Harrison Phillips, and that really didn't go well, and he wound up being a healthy scratch. And I know some people are wondering, hey, is he still getting bugged by the ACL? I mean, if he was getting bugged by that injury, he would be on the injury report at any point. He has not been on the injury report at all this season. So I'm not really buying into that theory. So they tried that. And then they've tried so many different combinations. They've tried Vernon Butler at one technique. They've tried Quentin Jefferson at one technique, which has just been a cataclysmic failure. They tried Ed Oliver at one technique at times, which is when Ed Oliver kind of disappeared to the eye. It was when they were mixing him inside at one technique more often than not. Justin Zimmer came in, and he's probably been their best one technique guy so far, even though he's smaller than everybody. They just don't have one of those guys. And, just watching other teams and the way that they operate, the Bills have done this thing where they shift their defensive tackles based on which side is the weak side. And if there's a motion that goes over to cause the other side to be the weak side, then they flip their defensive tackles in their roles. So if it's Ed Oliver and Vernon Butler out there, Butler could have been the one technique to start, and then they just they rotate them to have Oliver at one tech and Butler at three tech. So all of these different things, it's just totally not what we are used to them doing at those spots, it's because they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure out something because they're just getting pushed off the ball against the run. And they just don't have that one technique to really hold those two blockers up and give the linebackers a lane. I think there's a positive correlation here toward them not having that position and Tremaine Edmonds' downturn in play this season. So it's just been a pretty big problem for them, and they just don't have an answer on this roster.
This is the Shout Bills podcast on a Wednesday night. Welcome into the show. We have Joe Buscaglia. If you're just joining us, we got it shared out on all the Facebook groups. So we usually get a little trickle in here about 5-10 minutes into the show. And if you noticed, we got a new set. I know that all of our listeners have followed along as I've complained about our basement remodel. Well, the remodel's done. I have my own little cove here. It's very comfy, but I will say one of the tricks is we have to turn the heat off before the show. Otherwise, you're going to hear the heat in the background. It's going pretty loud right now, so I forgot to turn it off. So for this episode, you're just going to have to deal with that. I'll make sure I'll remember it in the future. But yeah, I like it. I got a little bit of everything going on back here.
Yeah, what time is it?
Well, that's a great question. So I haven't quite figured out why the clock won't work. It'll light up, but it won't actually work. So Joe, the great person that he is, came up with a great idea. It's going to be a different time every episode, and that's just going to be the way that it is. Speaking of time, I'm wondering what time it's going to be this weekend on this Bills offensive line and what we see after, it's just a little bit of a confusing past couple weeks. You have the Mitch Morse injury. He suffers the concussion, leaves the Patriots game. He's in the protocol. He misses the Seahawks game. John Feliciano comes in. The Bills have quite the offensive showing, 44 points. And then the next week, Sean McDermott wants to keep that rotation in the game. Mitch Morse, a healthy scratch after he gets back from the concussion. And it's been just a lot of commotion amongst Bills social media the last week and a half. Just what's going on with Mitch Morse? Is he going to play? And Sean McDermott this week continued to kind of leave it up in the air. He said he'll be in the mix this week to play. We'll see how it transpires. But before we get too deep into this, what has been your observations of just this entire turn of events?
Go ahead, Ryan. All you.
Oh, yeah, sure. It's confusing to me because in my mind, Mitch Morse was playing very well this season. I thought that once he cleared the concussion protocol, it didn't make any sense to keep him out an extra week. Once you've cleared that protocol, unless I'm mistaken, you're viewed as being 100%. There's not a take an extra week off and get better. It's not like a leg injury or something like that where it's, hey, if we give him that extra week and he comes back after the bye as well, then he's really going to be healthy. That's not how it works, at least, like I said, unless I'm mistaken. So I was a little surprised to see the healthy scratch. I get that you wanted to see what you had out there because of the success that they had in the Seattle game. Ike Butgers actually was playing some pretty decent football. Obviously, they love Feliciano and that versatility that he brings and the fact that he could step it right in at center. But at the same time, this is the guy that you made the highest paid center in the league. This was someone that's come in this year up until that concussion, had been healthy and had been playing well. So I was a little bit confused by the mysteries surrounding it, by the not being a healthy scratch, but not being on the field in that Cardinals game.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a convoluted conversation when you look at when this whole string of momentum that McDermott alluded to, when it began was in that Patriots game, right as Mitch Morse got hurt, and they wound up just blocking their butts off in the running game. That was their most successful running game by far this season. It was the focal point of their offense. And Ike Butker had a great game in that one. There's no doubt there. And then they had Brian Winters play probably his best game of the season, which is probably more of an average level. Feliciano looked good at center. And so they looked at that and probably thought to themselves, okay, well, they won at Seattle, so why not just keep the same group going rather than switch parts? I get that. But the one thing that they kind of didn't think about is that New England has one of the worst run defenses in the league, if not the worst run defense in the league. And so when you try to inflate your opinion based on recency bias more than anything, then it's kind of tough to do. I do wonder if maybe they wanted to give Mitch Morse a week just because it's the 5th documented concussion. They have the bye week the week after. I mean, I know he wasn't on the injury report, but I think if it's me, I'm in that decision-making spot, I'm thinking to myself, maybe I want to do this. What's best for the guy here, and just give him an extra couple of weeks. But I think the more interesting conversation about this whole thing, because I am of the belief that they'll inevitably go back to their optimal 5, which is Dawkins, in some fashion, Dawkins, Williams, Morse, Ford, and Feliciano. I think that will inevitably happen at some point. But the more interesting conversation is what happens after the year, because for the first time since they've signed Mitch Morse to his contract, they have an out this season where the dead money is not overtaking the cap hit of the year. So they could save a little over $5 million. I want to say $5.4 million if they were to move on from him. Now, we all know that they love John Feliciano. Brian Dable said it this past week. I believe the term he used was Feliciano embodies what they look for in offensive linemen. And that's some strong language to talk about one of the players who, is on a pretty mediocre contract, and that's still without a contract moving forward. So I wonder if maybe they move on from Morse in the offseason, save that money, put that money towards John Feliciano, make him the center going forward. And so that way, because they value the center position in their offense way more than guard, for them to go, all right, well, this is a way for us to justify that price tag and to keep him with us for the long term because we believe in him. So I wonder if maybe that's a thought process of theirs.
Which that makes absolute sense. Could they also maybe think about getting rid of that contract to even put some of that money maybe toward Matt Milano if they want to come to like a 1-year agreement there? Because, I think that Milano, we've seen the value that he brings to this defense when he has not been on the field. But at the same time, if he tries to hit the market, that money might not be there because he's missed some time this year. And again, Matt and I have had the discussion. It's not fair to necessarily call him injury prone, but he's been banged up this year. So could that also be where they could use some of that money?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any money they can save, which they didn't give themselves the option of this year, Trent Murphy. I'm just going to keep hammering it. Any money they can save will help them in the long run. The other big decisions, and I'm sure you guys have touched on this before, John Brown's a big one because he could save them $8 million, and they have Gabriel Davis, who's looked like what could be a baseline complementary receiver next year if he continues to develop. And there's some other ones like Lee Smith is a flat 2.25. I think Quentin Jefferson could be around the $5 million mark. Same thing with Vernon Butler. There's a few others I'm forgetting right now, but there are opportunities here. And Morse is one that I hadn't really thought about up until recently. And it does make sense because if they love Feliciano, I mean, we all know it. We all hear what they say about him. It's like they just absolutely love the guy. They view him as a leader in the locker room, and I don't know that they want to lose him. And that, to me, opens the door to them potentially saying goodbye to Morse just because of the money they could save and how they could utilize it. So yeah, absolutely, that could be pushed to Milano and definitely be able to help them help the leadership of their team and keep the important parts to them of their team intact.
Mitch is such an interesting figure to me in that room because so much was talked about that offseason when we had chances to catch up with Brandon Beane about the importance of, before they signed Morse, the importance of finding that franchise center to pair with a young quarterback. And, through those conversations, what I left with was an idea in my mind of what that center was going to be like. And when Mitch came in, the early impressions that I got were, man, this guy, spent time with Patrick Mahomes. He was saying all the right things about, the impact that he had on Josh Allen. And then I take my interactions with him in the room, and first things first, Mitch is a very, very smart guy, and he's like a very personable guy, but he doesn't strike me as that vocal leader. Now, I'm not in the room. I can't speak to it. I've talked to a few people over the course of the last 2 years he's been here, year and a half, and the impressions of him in the room are very high. I mean, I asked Josh Allen about it today, and I said, what has Mitch meant to you? What impact has he had on you? And he said off the field, he leads by example. He's always in the film room. He's the first one after practice to be in the film room, making sure to fix all the problems that they've kind of tabbed during practice or in meetings. And so I guess, long story short, what do you think his role is on this offense? What he's meant to Josh Allen? And is it something, to your point, that maybe they see long term, not only the closeness that Josh and John have off the field, but the chemistry they seem to have on the field, that might be a better option?
Yeah, I think Feliciano has actually played really well at center too, which confuses things. I think the reason why we'll likely see Feliciano move back to guard at some point, maybe even this week, is because Morse is a center only, and he hasn't really done. He played tackle in college, but since he's gotten in the pros, he's been a center, and that's what he's paid to do, and that's probably what he'll continue to do. But yeah, I think there is something to that. I think there's also part of the conversation with, the concussion thing has to factor in. He now has 5 documented, which means there's a good chance that he's had more than 5 in his playing career, and that's scary. It's very scary from a human standpoint. It's scary from the standpoint of investing as much as they have in Mitch Morse, and it makes you wonder what the future is here. I mean, the immediate future is he's a part of this team for the next 6 games and the playoffs, and he's going to play what I think should be a vital role. He should be starting because he has earned the right to start. He has been one of their best 5 linemen. In fact, he's been one of their best 3 linemen. So to me, he should be on the field. But past that, to your point, what you're saying, the leadership stuff, the way that the bond between Allen and Feliciano, like those things can't be ignored, and you can't afford to pay everyone along your offensive line. They paid Dawkins a huge amount, and he's not going anywhere. They paid Morse. They want to keep Feliciano around, but the way that you build your team smartly is to invest in your left tackle, invest in your center, and then fill in the rest with what you can do with young players on rookie contracts and some veterans that can get you by, especially at the guard position. So maybe, out goes Morse, in comes Feliciano into that money role for them, and then they go from there.
Let's talk a little bit about the run game. We haven't seen a lot out of it other than that Patriots game, which
that he just made. See that?
I did.
We were going one way. We do this thing in the chat, and then right as he was about to talk,
as I was starting,
go a different direction. So he was just kind of like, okay, go.
Pause and stop. Let's go to the run game. Other than the Patriots game, they've really had trouble getting things going on a consistent basis. There's flashes from Moss, some flashes from Singletary, but nothing consistent. How much of the offensive line play has to do with that? And then maybe underutilization. In your opinion, why hasn't this unit been able to go?
Oh man, it's a tough answer to that. I think a little bit of it has been the blocking up front. I think there is the types of plays that they're calling. It certainly has helped them not be as simple as maybe they ought to be. What has confused me most about the usage of Zach Moss is they haven't really used him between the tackles as much as I thought they would. And that's a strong area for him. And maybe they're just not getting the push they want up front or something along those lines. They were doing more of it against New England, don't get me wrong, but a lot of times they are trying to get the running back to the edge, and you'll see a lot of times where the entire offensive line are moving in one direction, whether it be right or left, and then potentially trying to get the running back outside and to the edge and into some open space, which is good for a guy like Singletary. And Moss can do it too, but I just feel like you might be missing a little bit of opportunity with Moss to really just be physical, be that explosive player when he sees the hole and just go for it. So yeah, I think it's been a little bit of play calling. It's a little bit been a blocking up front. I don't think Brian Winters has been that good this season. I think that's been a weak spot. Daryl Williams really hasn't been a strong enough run blocker for my taste. Really good pass blocker this season, but there's a reason why the Bills are trying to run to the left way more than they are to the right side. And from there, it's trying to figure out what their identity is as a run team. And I would not be surprised if this week we see the Bills come out running, because this Chargers team, I know they're banged up and Casey Hayward didn't practice today, but I would not be surprised, because you can run on them, particularly right up the middle. And I would not be surprised if they try to make that a point of emphasis in this game coming up.
Interesting. There's a question in the chat, and I think it's a good one, because you mentioned Daryl Williams and really the nice story that he's been this year for that offensive line, and it's allowed them to move Cody Ford inside, which is something we talked about a lot over the last year, and maybe more of his natural fit. But what is the long-term future of Daryl Williams in Buffalo? Because to your point, they have a lot of mouths to feed, and he's playing himself in probably a nice, healthy contract.
Yeah, he definitely is. But if you're the Bills, just from a roster building standpoint, and the fact that they're so cap strapped this year, I mean, even if it was in a normal year, I don't know that they should make the emotionally based decision to re-sign Daryl Williams just because they knew him from Carolina and he's given you one good year. It is a nice story, and he definitely has made a huge comeback from what he was last year. I was not expecting this from him at all based on what I saw on the Carolina film. But I think the big point about this is they already have $15 million of their salary cap invested into the offensive tackle position next year. And you need to diversify where you are spending your cap resources. And you can't overspend on one spot, because then that's going to leave you shorthanded in another. So what the course of action that I personally would take in this situation, and it's definitely influenced by the cap strap nature of 2021, is I would let Daryl Williams walk. And I would try to get, because they're probably not going to be in a position to sign free agents this offseason. And I would look at him as one of the marquee ways to get a solid compensatory pick in 2022. They're going to be right in the formula this year. I know I asked Bean about it all the time. And that's cool, because that's kind of my shtick. And I've been wondering about it because it's something that he has mentioned before. But this is really the first year where they have a legitimate case to be in that comp formula. And I think Williams is a strong candidate to land somewhere on maybe not a super long-term deal, but if he gets $8-9 million to be a starting right tackle somewhere, that's going to go really well into the comp formula. So I think that will definitely help them moving forward.
Let's move to the skill position, and John Brown doesn't practice for the second straight day today, second straight practice. And this is something that, you've been talking about for a few weeks now, concern over this injury, because, he was so good early in the season, and this offense was so good early in the season. You start to think about if there are real long-term effects here where this, obviously is not going away. It's something that it seems like he's hurting himself in every game at some point. What do they do if he's not right? And can they be the same offense we saw in September, in January, without a healthy John Brown?
I think they can. I know you're going to be missing something just because you're missing all that experience and nuanced route running and everything like that. The concerning part to me with Brown is that over the last few weeks that he has been available to them, his average depth of target has just dropped like a ton of bricks. His yardage was inflated by those 2 screens, and you can't take that away from him by any chance. But I mean, those are 33 and 31-yard plays, and where off a throw that got to him 1 to 2 yards past the line of scrimmage, maybe right at the line of scrimmage. The majority of his targets are right around the 7 to 10-yard mark, and that's not terrible. But when you are having difficulty separating, like he has been in the last couple of games, and you aren't able to really get yards after the catch, like he hasn't been able to do recently, outside of those screenplays, you're getting kind of a limited guy. And when you take away those screenplays from the last 2 games, his average yardage for a catch has been around like 8.2, which is one of the worst marks in the league for wide receivers. So I don't know. I think the injury has a big part to do with it. He is also turning 31 in April, and this is a player that has certainly depended on his speed and his route running and his quickness and the ability to use his quick feet to get back to the ball. And he still uses that to a certain degree. I just don't know if he's going to age really well in the NFL, if that makes sense. Because the speed is a huge part to him and why he's so successful and why teams defend him the way that they do. But if that part's not there, if he's not separating like he has been the last couple of weeks, then that takes away a big part away from your offense. So I think they can be competitive without him. And I really want to see how Gabriel Davis steps up, especially if Brown doesn't play this week. I think this is a great opportunity against the Chargers secondary that is just absolutely rattled by injuries. I mean, Derwin James isn't playing, and he's awesome. Casey Hayward didn't practice today, and he's their best cover guy. They're rolling out some guy named Davis and Campbell out there. Campbell actually had a pick 6 on Joe Flacco, but like these are legit opportunities. Joe Flacco, man. Joe Flacco almost engineered the comeback in that game. I got some Jets takes if you want them.
Ooh, I would love some Jets takes. But before we do, Ryan has a follow-up, but we got to go to a quick word from our sponsor.
Ready for football? Tops is with ready-to-serve fan favorites everyone will cheer for. Delicious family or party packs like pizza, sliders, fried chicken, barbecue, or beef on whack, starting at only $4 per serving. Perfect for game day and any day. Only at Tops.
Yeah, Joe, you mentioned those screen passes, and it looked like the one, when he would have been healthy, he would have been able to take that to the house for a touchdown, but he was caught from behind. So going back to Gabriel Davis, let's just say that Brown misses this week and maybe another week after that, because it's a little concerning after the bye that he's still not practicing. Mm-hmm. If Davis steps up in that short term with the Bills, again, cap strapped in 2021, does that maybe then plant the seed that he's another guy that they may have to part ways with and give Davis that bigger role while maybe finding another piece, or maybe it's an Isaiah Hodgins in 2021 to kind of fill in that Gabriel Davis role?
Yeah, they've been kind of grooming Gabriel Davis to play that X receiver role basically all year. I know he's kind of gone a little bit everywhere. Sometimes he plays Z, sometimes he plays slot. Not really play slot a lot, but mostly X and Z. But when John Brown is healthy, Gabriel Davis is usually backing up him in the receiver line at the X receiver spot. So they definitely have that vision for him, and they think they could probably get Gabriel Davis to be a solid number 2 receiver, but he also has to show it. Now, one thing that's definitely working in Gabriel Davis's favor is that the Bills can save $8.15 million on next year's cap by cutting John Brown, which, yeah, I'm no mathematician, but when you combine that with the $4 or $5 million that they have at their disposal for next year right now, that gets you to Matt Milano. So, it's a tough decision because John Brown means so much to them, and he came in and he was basically their number 1 guy in 2019 and definitely looked the part then. But in football, you have to be emotionless at times. You really do. And when you spot declining ability, then you have to be quick to act, especially when it has such a stronghold on your cap. And if Brown is, I mean, we have to see what he looks like through the rest of the year. Let's say they get him healthy, and if he still has that speed and he comes back to be that player that he was at the beginning of the season, then this is a different discussion. But if he comes back and it's a lot more of the same, he's not separating like he was last year or even earlier this year, then you wonder, okay, what do you do here? I mean, do you just go with the status quo and have to cut at other places? Because receiver is really one of the only spots where they have a young player that they drafted, that they invested in to come in and start potentially next season. I mean, they don't have that at defensive tackle for Vernon Butler or for Quentin Jefferson. And they certainly don't have that as a blocking tight end, I guess, for at least, I guess you could say Tommy Sweeney, but that's another issue. But yeah, this is a very clear opportunity to me to where they need to figure out what Gabriel Davis can do. And I will be fascinated to see how he plays. And I like Gabriel Davis. I like what he's done in an improvisational way. I mean, he is so talented at the way he moves when plays break down and getting to open areas of the field and making himself available, especially deep down the field. That's going to be, if he's on the field a lot with Josh Allen, I think we're going to see that get taken advantage of quite a bit as a starter moving forward, if that's his role. But yeah, I think there's some other things he needs to improve upon, the route running, separation a little bit. I would like to see a better job of, but he's off to a really good start for them.
You were quick to figure out today that Isaiah Hodgins and Duke Williams were not on the practice field when we were out there.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't on the injury report, but to your point, they don't have to be practice squad, injury reserve. Isaiah Hodgins, though, them activating him, I think, the thought was probably as the season went on and he remained on IR, and maybe a redshirt year, leave him off to, kind of focus on what they have going on right here. But, they activate him, let him practice for at least 3 weeks. There's a couple different scenarios that could play out here. They can bring him back, let him practice just to get to 3 weeks. They could bring him back in case there's an injury or a COVID related issue where he'd have to actually play. What do you think they activated him for? And what are not only your this season expectations of Hodgins, but where does he fit in after what you saw at camp?
Yeah, it's tough because he didn't practice a lot. I think, let me look at my practice spreadsheet. I think he might have had like 5 practices total, if I'm not mistaken.
We'll give you up to 5 minutes because I know how many spreadsheets you got sitting in front of you there.
Let me see here. No, he was all the way through September 3rd. Okay. And then they threw him on IR. He practiced. Anyway, I was wrong. My bad. So yeah, he had like, I don't know, 11 practices. So that's pretty good, but that's not enough to know exactly what he can be. I think for now, because they haven't seen him, I think this is a clear opportunity for them to see what they have in him, even if it's just in a practice setting. I don't think there are any immediate, I guess, plans to put him on the active roster. I mean, where's he going to go? They're not going to put 7 receivers on the roster. That would just kind of be overkill, especially with all the other needs they have elsewhere. Whether it be a 5th linebacker or a 6th cornerback that they could have on there, or maybe another running back or something. I don't know. It just seems a little much, and they don't have to bring him on because he's not going to play special teams for them. He's not going to be on the field as a receiver, but it does give them the option in case there is an injury for them to activate him, especially down the stretch of the season here. So my guess is if everything stays the way it is from an injury perspective, that they'll probably just let him practice and then return him to the long-term IR. But, they at least want to see, and I don't blame them. I mean, it's been 3 months since they've seen him practice. So I don't think it hurts anything for them to see what they have in Hodgins, at least for this window, and for him to try and prove to them that he needs to be on the active roster down the stretch of the season.
Speaking of training camp and thinking back to that, one player that I think we even talked about this that seemed a little bit out of his depths, at least for what we were able to watch, was Dane Jackson. I watched him in training camp and I was like, all right, this is a 7th round draft pick that has not had any spring, mini camp, anything else. You know, this might be a red shirt year for him. And then what does he do? He comes in 2 games and plays really, really well. And well-rounded too. Like, it's not just one area. Obviously he has the turnovers, but I think, you know, he's been a pretty good tackler. He's been somebody that, you know, stepped up and had that big PBU against DeAndre Hopkins in the Arizona game. And so now you're left with a situation of 2 cornerbacks ahead of him on the depth chart, Levi Wallace and Josh Norman. And maybe if you're the Bills, when you see Dane Jackson come in and play the way that he did, you know, maybe 2 options that, you know, you wouldn't be too upset about if you found a young player that could come in and maybe elevate that position. Where do you land on that and what you've seen from Levi Wallace, Josh Norman, and, you know, should Dane Jackson be considered to be the starter at that spot?
Yeah, I think he definitely should be considered. I don't think he will be right away. You know, you pointed out when we were chatting on the sidelines about how strong Leslie Frazier kind of came in support of Levi Wallace. And I don't think that's just talking points for Leslie. He's usually not the one to, I guess, bend the truth when he's speaking with the media. He's usually pretty upfront with his either his adulation or, you know, saying that a guy needs to be a better. But to your point, I've really liked what Dane Jackson has done. And I know the flashier play was probably against Tennessee because he picked off the pass, but his best game was Arizona. And I don't think it's close. He was sticky against DeAndre Hopkins and broke up that pass in the end zone. I'm like, okay, rookie. I see. I mean, it's 6th round pick. That's a tough responsibility, man to man against Hopkins in the end zone. And we saw what Hopkins could do in the end zone. That's a big play by him, but you do want to see it drawn out consistently. And the one thing that they know about Levi is that he is fully capable of putting together performances like that. They know he knows the defense like the back of his hand. They know they can trust him in those spots. They probably think of him as more of a practiced hand, more consistent. And because of that, I think they would favor him in those situations. I don't think we've seen the last of Josh Norman. And I also think that Josh Norman, I don't know if it's fair to judge what his season has been just yet because he's only played in 3 games. His first game, I know we talked about this earlier too. His first game was against Vegas, and he was really good in that game. And then his next 2 games, Kansas City, Tennessee, yeah, not so good. But that's only 3 games. That's a very small sample size in an NFL season. And I would like to see, or I'm sure they would like to see if they can get more out of him because they know what he has been in this scheme before. So I wonder if maybe they platoon Wallace and Norman. They've done that before at the cornerback position. We've seen it time and time again with this staff. I wonder if maybe that could be something they do just to bring Norman back along slowly now that he is finally back from injury / COVID / whatever else.
Well, this is a perfect transition with the secondary talk. The Bills are going against a high-powered offense. Justin Herbert this week, impressive rookie quarterback. How do you feel the Bills match up against that offense?
I love Justin Herbert. I really do. I mean,
did you always? Because I can't remember us talking about this.
Well,
okay.
Well, look, like in draft season, I only watch really closely the positions that the Bills might need. I mean, that's how I do it now. I used to be really psycho about it back when I was younger, but
get out of town. You have no psychotic tendencies, Joe. None whatsoever.
But no, I didn't watch quarterbacks to a grand degree outside of maybe like Senior Bowl practices. But this dude, Herbert, is just insanely talented, and he is so poised for a rookie quarterback. I mean, the way he gets the ball out as quickly as he does, and it's not just like he's settling for the small stuff. He is like manipulating defenders with his eyes. He is reading the defense to a T every single snap. I mean, he is picking apart zone defenses. There was one play that went for, I think, 54 yards against the Jets, and he immediately recognized that the Jets were in a Tampa 2, had a receiver going down the seam, and saw the linebacker in catch-up mode, and put this picture-perfect pass right down the middle with the defender bearing down and about to crush him. Picture-perfect pass for 54 yards. It was just like easy as a flick of the wrist. Man-to-man coverage, he's still good, and he takes advantage of it because he has the legs to scramble when they try to bracket his first and second reads. He had this other incredible window throw against zone coverage. This is the one I showed you in practice, Matt, where he just tucked it right into this very tiny window to Mike Williams. And when he threw the ball, Williams was nowhere on screen. And by the time the ball got to where Williams was, it was perfectly in stride. The ball was right here, hit Williams right in the diamond. The safety was coming up because he thought he had a chance to pick it off, but the pass was perfect. Williams takes it up for a touchdown. Like, this rookie is legit. And you know, that's tough to say about young quarterbacks because a lot of times you see the processing part not be there for them. But this guy, he's just with it. I am so impressed by Justin Herbert. But to your question, sorry, I
no, it's all right.
I could see the excitement in your eyes when you were showing me that video clip today. So I knew that this was going to be, we'd have to get a fan out and, you know, just give you a second. But no, it's funny because Bills fans watching this, like, dodged a bullet. I mean, there was some consideration for Miami. I remember during the draft, lead up to the draft, they were considering Herbert. And I think, you know, I know you don't want to overreact. I mean, especially in this city with the quarterback that's there now, you never want to overreact to a kid's first year. But right now, I mean, Herbert's looking like the more dynamic player. Oh
yeah, Herbert's going to win Rookie of the Year. I don't doubt that one, especially now that Joe Burrow is hurt. I think Herbert's going to win the Rookie of the Year, and he has been so talented, and just, I mean, but now the question is, how will he do against a Bills defense that notoriously does well against rookie quarterbacks, young players, because Sean McDermott likes to take away what they do best. I do think Herbert is better suited than others. I think what they'll probably end up doing is some late arriving pressure and to try and confuse him a little bit. He does get the ball out super quickly, so you can't do that too often. But that said, they have to find ways. And I think one of the keys here will be to knock him off his spot. And the play of the defensive tackles are so critical to stopping this passing attack because their center, Dan Feeney, is not good. He was a major liability for them against the Jets. And the left guard, Forrest Lamp, he was not doing all that well. The left tackle, Sam Tevi, he was getting pushed around by power. Even the right tackle, Bulaga, who they signed to a big deal in the offseason, he was not dealing with speed to the edge very well. So, but I think the best way to try and knock Herbert down a little bit and force him into some throws and check downs, maybe take some sacks, is that pressure right from the interior because he gets the ball out quick. So Ed Oliver, Quentin Jefferson, this is a big game for them. And I think this is one where, you know, fans have been waiting to see flash plays from Oliver. I mean, he's been making the plays on film, even though they haven't been flashy on broadcast. I think this is a game where Oliver could really stand out.
So another question for you, and let's kind of look ahead, assume the Bills get into the playoffs. What would be the one nightmare matchup, in your opinion, that you would not want the Bills to face? And obviously, if the Bills are a top 3 seed, they're not going to see Pittsburgh in the first game or anything like that. But one of those teams that are kind of hanging around or in the wild card spot, is there one right now that you say, oh, man, I would not – I don't think the Bills match up well against this specific team?
I might say Cleveland, just because They are so invested in running the ball, and they have two really good runners. I mean, Nick Chubb is probably one of the best naturally talented runners in the league. They have obviously Kareem Hunt, who has had prolific seasons in the past and is more of a pass catching back. But their offensive line too, they are just playing at such a powerful and high level. It's also a potential hashtag revenge game for Wyatt Teller, which
the one that got away.
Seriously, I mean, I guess Brandon Beane could take credit for a hit on that pick, but he gave up on it way too quick. But also defensively too. I mean, this is a man coverage team. They've got good young corners. I think Denzel Ward could match up at least a little bit with Stephon Diggs. And then they've got the pass rush with Myles Garrett. I mean, Cleveland's sneakily a very good team, and they're going to be a tough out for somebody. So if there's one, I think the Bills could beat Vegas again. I think the Bills could beat Baltimore. Tennessee, I think they could go toe to toe with. Cleveland, they could certainly beat as well. But I think from a matchup perspective, that's not one that I would say is a good fit for the Bills.
One more thing, but I want to get this one before we get to that because it was a fan question and I thought it was fun.
I love my Jets takes.
No, maybe we'll have time for Jets takes. We'll see. I mean, listen, I feel like the Jets should be put in that drawer that you're not going to see until next year. And you just put the Jets in that drawer and we talk about the Jets maybe in a year or so. We'll see. They're tire fire. But I want your take. So we'll see.
Okay.
The comment was, I love the chemistry between you and Matthew Fairburn, co-host of the Buffalo Beat, obviously, at The Athletic. What would you say is one Bills-related issue that you and Fairburn don't agree on?
I was going to say Blaine Gabbert, but
I think over the years you've come to love Blaine a little bit. I can sense it in your voice.
It's a love-hate sort of thing. I have brought up Gabbert without Matt saying it first. I don't know. Maybe we're two pretty logical guys, so that we agree on a lot of stuff. Maybe it was a little bit of the Trent Murphy stuff. I've always been in the camp of cut him, and maybe this is just a recent example. I think maybe Matt was maybe more of a, he's still a good player, and if he's good enough, he should be on the roster. So maybe that, but nothing really like huge or anything like that. That's a boring answer. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I can't really think of one off the top of my head.
I would imagine that the more interesting disagreements come at dinner choices on the road, but we only got a few minutes here to get in these
dinner choices, fantasy football, fantasy basketball.
Yeah, there you go. Speaking of fantasy football, you're having yourself another quite a year there.
Thank you.
You want to let everybody know your team name, because I think it's pretty good, pretty solid.
It's so hot right now. An allusion to Zoolander. I've got Hansel as the avatar. It's
awesome. Yeah. All right,
yeah.
drop your hottest Jets take right now before we get out of here.
Do I really want to do this? Okay. What the hell? I think the Jets can beat Miami this week.
Ooh, okay, spicy.
I actually really like the way that the Jets played against the Chargers. I think defensively they were pretty with it. Their zone coverage is a bit of a mess, but their pass rush was actually really good against the Chargers. Their linebackers and safeties were playing with some fire. I do think that going up against Tua will help them. If they, I don't know the status on Darnold, but the Jets are at home. They looked like they were really, really hurt at the end of that Chargers game because they thought they were close. They thought they had a chance to win, and just like some of their body language and stuff like that looked like they were blocking fairly better. I don't know. There's something about this Jets team that makes me think that the Bills should be happy that they already played them. They're looking a little bit better than they were at the beginning of the season, and I don't think that's a testament to Adam Gase or anything, but I think the players just don't want to go 0-16, and they're trying to get this thing done. And Miami has definitely taken strides this year, but starting a rookie quarterback, especially one that was confused last week and ended up getting benched and all of these different things, he's going to be on the road again. They're going to be looking for a big answer back from him, but I don't know. I think the Jets are probably going to take a lot of what Denver did and try and associate it to this game. The game is a 7-point spread. The Jets are home dogs. I don't know. I would consider taking the contrarian one there and going Jets. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
I like it. And Joe Flacco is all the rage
is
again.
Darnold playing?
And he's he might play. And also a factor in this might be Frank Gore too. I listened to him talk pretty passionately about not going 0-16, and I think that no, not him as terms of what he's giving as a player. I'm saying what that locker room probably wants to do for Frank Gore. I mean, if you remember back to last season, even John Feliciano saying the reverence that he kind of alluded to when talking about just being in the huddle with Frank Gore. Guys love him and guys love playing with him. So I think that there could be something there. All right.
Darnold is looking likely to play, by the way.
Ooh. All right. Well,
I don't know if they end up beating them, then you heard it here first. But if they end up losing the 11th game in a row, you did not hear me say that.
Got you. Perfect. All right. Let everybody know what you got coming, what you guys got cooking over at The Athletic, and where they can find you.
Yeah. If you go over to theathletic.com/the Buffalo Beat, you can get in for a limited time offer. I believe it's right now $2 a month at the moment.
Wow.
So just go to theathletic.com/the Buffalo Beat. You can hear a podcast there. You can read all the stuff that I write. I just did a very in-depth full-on roster evaluation with grades, trends, charts, what could happen, what has happened, and it took a long time. So you can find that there, and of course the game previews and everything along those lines, and see if and of course the all 22 coaches film grading that I do every single week. So yeah, you can find that all there at theathletic.com/the Buffalo Beat.
Exactly. And if you are unfamiliar with The Athletic, you don't just get the Buffalo stuff, you get everything across the country in every sport. I mean, it's really a one-stop shop. And I don't know what I would do with my subscription. And so, my man, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate this.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you having me on again. And hopefully I will I'll make some people feel good about potentially betting the Jets. They're probably gonna get blown out, but it'll be fun. They at least look good on film, right? They look good.
There you go. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Have some good food, and we'll see you Friday.
All right, sounds good, buddy.
All right, take care. All right, so that was Joe Buscaglia of The Athletic. Thank you so much to him for joining us. This is the Shout Buffalo Bills Football Podcast. We're not done yet. We got a special last-minute guest here. He's going to come on for a few minutes and talk a little bit about a few things. LaShawn, my man, Warlock6, you know him, Bills Mafia on Twitter. How are you, my friend? Oh, we can't hear you, buddy. Let's see. We always got something.
Always. There's always some kind of technology issue here.
See if you can't monkey around with your audio settings. See if there's a different setting that you have to hit, because we can't hear you. Ryan, in the meantime, let's talk a little bit. Oh, we got something? Thought I heard something. Oh, no, we still can't hear you. It's a bummer when this happens. I feel like this always happens. Some type of little audio snafu at some point in the podcast.
Always. Without fault. Every week there's something.
I blame it on you, actually, because most of the time I feel like you're some type of bad mojo coming off of those bobbleheads behind you. I don't know what it is specifically, but let me before as we try to get LaShawn in here, he can hear us loud and clear. We can't hear him. Let me talk a little bit about why he's on here. First of all, we're gonna talk a little Bills. If you don't follow him on Twitter, as far as higher profile Bills fans go, his Bills commentary is top notch. So we'll obviously talk some Bills, but he did something really cool last weekend, and it just jumped off at me immediately because it was generous. It was around the time of the holidays and just the what's going on in the world today with COVID and the struggles that a lot of people are going through. He just said, want to brighten up some people's day, and he said, I'm gonna do a contest, and I have 2 $500 gift cards. I'm going to put it out here. Everybody who likes this tweet, you're immediately entered. In a couple days, I'm going to pick a winner, and 2 people are going to get this. Well, it exploded, first for the 2 gift cards, but then other people started getting involved. And it got all the way up to over $4,000 in gift cards that LaShawn ended up raffling off to a bunch of Bills fans across the country. He has sent them all out. People have been opening them and sharing in the joy. And it was just absolutely moving from my perspective to see someone just brighten up people's weekends and weeks and days. And so I don't know if the audio is back yet, man, but kudos. It was super cool.
No, we can't hear you, but yeah, he does this. He does this all the time. He with the generous gift cards, with Bills tickets. He's done this in the past. This is a guy that's a Bills fan through and through, but absolutely has a huge heart for the fan base and just for people in general, always doing good. So I love seeing that too, especially like you said, holiday season, a time that can be very tough for some people, especially with everything going on in 2020. So it was phenomenal. It was great to see how many people got involved and how many people shared that. But yeah, again, tip of the cap to you. Just awesome.
I see some comments in here, and a couple comments. LaShawn, try going out and coming back in again and see if that helps you out, if you can hear me. We'll talk a little bit more Bills. Oh, now we can hear you.
You can hear me now.
You did something.
There we go. I don't know what I did, but I'm here.
Perfect. What's up, my man? How are you?
I'm great. I'm blessed. Happy to be on. Thank you very much for having me.
Got your 26 shirts on there, I see.
Yeah. Of course. Mr. Process. I love my coach.
We had tell me, I mean, like Ryan mentioned, I mean, this is not the first time that you did this. You've done tickets before, and different things with Bills fans. I mean, you've really embraced that idea of making this a community. And what prompted that, and what makes you continue to want to do these things?
As you said, I've been doing this for a while now, whether it's season tickets or whether it's, playoff tickets or whatever the case may be. I've always been very generous. I'm blessed. So I like to, help other people out, give to others. And the other day I was at Walmart Christmas shopping with my family, and it just, something came on my heart, and I said, why don't I just, get a couple gift cards? Because times are hard right now with COVID and people being unemployed and, like everybody's world being flipped upside down due to no fault of their own. So I said, this should just be something cool that I can do, try to help people out. So I got the gift cards and put it on Twitter. But, so I just wanted to do something to help people out. But once one Bills fan actually donated, it just created like a groundswell, and giving to people and being generous is, it's contagious. So once that first Bills fan chipped in, then another, Bills fan DM me, then another Bills fan, then eventually you DM me, and we wind up giving away 23 gift cards for $4,350. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Very, very cool, man. Like it was, it's just positivity, man, putting positivity in the world. I think that's one of the things that I try, of course we get into our little spats on Twitter from time to time. I try to stay as much away from it as possible, but there's so much negativity in the world the football community, I feel like, and sports community, it's a game. It's fun. I mean, these guys talk about it all the time. Like I want it to be as positive as possible. And so, yeah, man, I thank you for doing that because it was inspirational. Now let's get on to the Bills though, because I know you're a huge Bills fan. You have, I can't remember when it was. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but I was listening to the Sal Sports. I think it was one of his extra point shows, and you had a fire call. I was like, dude, this dude knows his stuff. So lay it on me here. I mean, you got a 7-3 football team. You're going to host the Chargers this week. Driver's seat in the AFC East. Where's your head at?
I mean, what a time to be a Bills fan. It's fantastic, man. We everything's in front of us. We got our first opportunity in 25 years to win a division. Tom Brady's gone. I knew once he left, I said to myself, now that Brady's out of the division, we got all this talent. It's go time. So, I mean, right now, I think this game coming up, I don't sleep on the Chargers. They have some good talent over there. And Herbert's balling out. Keenan Allen's a monster. They got Bosa. They got Ingram coming off, both edges. So I think it's going to be a really good game. But this game is kind of personal to me. Like the Chargers, they beat us 4 in a row. They've beaten us 6 out of the last 7 games. Last time they beat us was Josh Allen's first actual start in Buffalo. I was at that game. The Chargers whipped up on us. The previous game was the Nathan Peterman game. That game was so embarrassing. So this game is kind of personal to me. I really want to, get the Chargers back and whip up on them. So I'm hoping, we can take it to them on Sunday.
So any questions, anything that you want to talk about with this Bills team? And if anybody in the comments has it as well, we'll keep this open for a few more minutes, chop it up, talk some stuff. Ryan, let's start with you. We just, spent 50 minutes with Joe Buscaglia from The Athletic. Thanks to him for coming on. Anything that stood out to you and any pressing, because I don't know if we're going to do a preview show because it's going to be the holiday weekend. We talked some Chargers today. I mean, we could do a little bit of that now, but you look at this Chargers team and the challenges they present on both sides of the ball. What stands out to you?
I don't know what just happened there. If Eckler is activated and comes back for this game, I think he could give the Bills some fits. I know he's practicing again. Obviously, that doesn't mean he's going to play it on Sunday just yet, but he's such a talented back. We know Buffalo's issues against the run at times this year, and having to worry about those great wide receivers that LaShawn mentioned and Justin Herbert. It would just be another layer onto this team where if you have Kalen Ballage or, one of those other secondary backs that's nowhere near the same level as an Austin Eckler, then I think it becomes a little bit easier for that defense to pin its ears back and play high level football.
LaShawn, you got any questions? Anything you want us to talk about here? I'll give you the floor.
I mean, all in all, I'm just excited about this season. It feels so good to finally have a franchise quarterback. Josh Allen is balling. And in my opinion, he's top 5 in the MVP race. I really hope he finishes the season strong, coming from, where he was a couple years ago. Big shout out to Brian Daboll helping develop Josh Allen. Shout out to McDermott and Bean for actually drafting him. I remember draft night, we took Allen and I was kind of depressed, listening to all the so-called experts, saying that, he was going to be terrible, and all the people on Pro Football Talk saying he was a comedy of a quarterback. So, that kind of, got to me in the beginning, but, here we are now. He's balling out of control. Picking up Stephon Diggs was fantastic. That was for me, that was the trade of the season right there. I remember DeAndre Hopkins, got traded. And I was like, the Cardinals picked them up for a bag of footballs, a 2nd-round pick. Are you kidding me? I was hoping we got Hopkins. And then when Diggs sent that tweet out saying, he wanted to move on, he wanted to change the scenery, I'm acting like I had a connection, a line to Brandon Bean, like, please pick up Stephon Diggs. And we picked him up. He's 2nd in the NFL in receiving yards. I think he's having an all-pro season. And, we got 6 games left. I'm really hoping that we can find a way to, go 5-1 in these last 6 games into the playoffs with a 12-4 record, to me that symbolized, having like a really good team. That's a big boy record right there, being 12-4, coming off this, difficult schedule that we've had. The Bills, have beat more teams with winning records than anybody in the National Football League. So I think the Bills are really battle tested, and I can't, wait to see how the rest of the season unfolds.
Couple questions in here. John Brown, trade candidate this offseason. I think that there's a money discussion to be had with John Brown, and I think that if it's something where the Bills feel like they need to re-sign Matt Milano and they can't find that money elsewhere, they want to re-sign Daryl Williams or some of the other, John Feliciano, who, when he's been in the lineup, he started 16 games last year. He's been really good. By the way, cheap shout out. There's a big story coming out on him tomorrow. Syracuse.com, NewYorkUpstate.com. Make sure you check this one out. You're going to like it. There's a lot of money that needs to be spent. So I think from that perspective, yeah, I think that $8 million could come into play, and that's a discussion that can be had. But if you're talking about just, moving on from John Brown for the sake of moving on, I don't see that as a viable option or something that I think that they'd even want to do. One of the things that Stephon Diggs has first of all said, he's called John Brown one of the most underrated, underappreciated wide receivers in the NFL. There's a real bond that's been created between those two guys off the jump. That's number one. But number two is, you heard Stephon Diggs talk today about how much he loves being here in Buffalo and the guys that are around him in the room. John Brown, I think, is a big piece of that. He's been, a guy that I think Stephon Diggs, even as a veteran that comes in here, has looked up to a bit and has connected with. And I think that's a big reason why, you going into this thing, I think there was questions about how quickly this offense was going to gel, because you were adding, no doubt, a true number one wide receiver, but they never played a game together before. So how long was it going to take to build that chemistry? And it's been phenomenal since the very beginning. And I think a big part of that is, John Brown's importance to this offense. And we've seen when he hasn't been there or hasn't been effective because of injury, it hasn't been as explosive. So I don't think the Bills are looking to trade John Brown. I think he's going to be somebody that, unless they have to move on for financial reasons, will be in the mix this year and next year. Another question I saw here is, you were talking about Josh LaShawn, and I think that he has made an unbelievable progression from year one to year two, and then, as crazy as it sounds, a bigger one from year 2 to year 3. I didn't think that was possible, and I've always been very high on him. And so I think that the question is there still room to grow? And so I'll let both of you take that. Like, how much more growth potential is there with Josh Allen?
I still think there is potential growth. I don't think we've seen the best version of Josh Allen yet. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, because I still think there's always going to be that little level of hero ball. He's never going to phase that part of his game out. There's still going to be some turnovers where you kind of scratch your head and you say, oh man, what was he thinking there, throwing into double, triple coverage? But he's eased off of that from year 1 to year 2 to year 3. So maybe it just becomes more and more sporadic. We saw him hitting some of those deep balls early this year. And then when defenses adjusted, there were some early struggles, but then we've seen him grow in terms of playing against zone. I still think he can get better in that area. He's diagnosing better, but there's still room to grow. So no, I don't think we've seen anywhere close to the best version of Josh Allen yet. And I think that should be pretty scary for any fan base that is not the Bills Mafia.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Josh Allen has a lot more room to grow. The talent is undeniable. He's so big. He's so strong. He's so fast. And I think this season, games has slowed down for him. It's, a lot easier having Stephon Diggs out there, true number one wide receiver. And I think, the sky is the limit for Josh Allen. I don't think we've seen his ceiling at all. I think he'll continue to develop, and I really can't wait to see him even next year, because now he's solidified as a good quarterback. Now, like my friends and my family, they can't, make jokes about Josh Allen, or he's just a running quarterback now. I go in my group chat and I'm talking about Josh Allen all the time, and nobody's attacking him. That's how I know he's good, because if he wasn't good, my friends would be attacking him. But now I put all my Josh Allen stories in my group chat. Nobody has anything to say. They just let me go off because they recognize he's a good quarterback. So I can't wait to see him get better and better and see what he has for us next year.
Ryan, you brought a question in here. We'll do this last one before we get out of here.
Yeah, so Dallas O'Brien asked if you could pick one of the two Bills semifinalists for the Hall of Fame, who would you choose, Steve Tasker or Cornelius Bennett?
What do you think, LaShawn?
Wow, that's a good one there. I mean, they're both great players. But to choose between the two, I'd probably go with Tasker. I think, he's arguably the greatest special teams player of all time, and I think it's a shame that he isn't in the Hall of Fame yet. But between the two, I mean, Bennett is definitely, deserving, and I think he should have his, shot at getting in as well. But I think I would choose Tasker out of the two.
I like that too, because, the thing that stands out to me about Tasker and any player that when you put some runway between when they retired and when you're talking about these kinds of things, we're talking about decades now since Steve Tasker played the game, and he really revolutionized that position that he played. I mean, you don't hear a lot of people talk about special teamers over the years, and he's one guy that no matter when, you bring it up with any type of football fan, they know who Steve Tasker is. And you saw even, some of the outpouring when when it was announced that he was a semifinalist. I think it was Kyle Brandt from Good Morning Football that was like, get Steve Tasker in the Hall of Fame. So to your point, I think Tasker earned it with his contributions and how important he was on those special teams units and all those Super Bowl teams. And what about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I think it's Tasker. I think Tasker should already be in, to be quite honest. Changed the way that people played. And, when they played the Bills, they knew where Tasker was at all times on special teams, which, again, you don't usually say that with a special teams player. A guy that went in and won a Pro Bowl MVP back when they were actually playing for something in those games, not when it was like a glorified scrimmage, two-hand touch game. They were actually playing hard back then, and he was MVP. Always one of my favorite players to watch. And, even though it doesn't have anything to do with his Hall of Fame career, what a cool way to go out. He gets ejected from his final game as a member of the Bills. I still remember that vividly. I remember watching that game. He accidentally brushed against an official, and that he got ejected in his farewell game. I want to say against the Packers. So just cool career, great player, a guy that I think really should have already been in the Hall of Fame at this point.
Yeah, hopefully we can get him on the podcast here before the end of the season, or at least at some point in the next few months, because I think he would be a fun guest to have. A lot of good stories to tell. All right, we're going to get out of here. This has been the Shout Buffalo Bills Football Podcast. Find us on all of the audio platforms if you can. Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to Shout. Give us a rating and review too if you're feeling extra generous this time of year. LaShawn, Warlock6, you can find him on Twitter. Unbelievable follow. Make sure you're doing it. Happy Thanksgiving, my friend. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me on. Please invite me on again another time, guys, and y'all have a happy Thanksgiving.
Sounds good, buddy. Take care. All right, so for Ryan Talbot, I am Matt Parrino. Final thoughts, Mr. Talbot.
Final thoughts, just I hope everyone has a safe and healthy Thanksgiving and enjoy that time with your family. Obviously, it's going to look a lot different this year than in years past for many of us in terms of smaller settings. But, be thankful. Find something to be thankful for this time of year, because there's always something.
And some good news. I don't want to jinx it because we've tried a few times. I think we're going to have Mr. Tyler Dunn on the show next Wednesday night. We set it up today. He just launched his new project, a newsletter over on Substack. He's going to have all of his long form features now at that site, kind of bringing it straight to you. The first two that dropped today were unbelievable. I mean, you could tell that he's made good use of the time since he left Bleacher Report. I mean, the two features that he wrote today were absolutely unbelievable. I'm so looking forward to diving into those two and so much more with him next week. We're finalizing it now, but I think we're close to making sure that he can come on, and that'll be great. Also next week, Dan Labb, he is the Cleveland Browns reporter for Cleveland.com. He is going to hop on the show to talk about a couple things. First of all, Joe B mentioned it, a tough potential playoff matchup. We'll talk about that Cleveland Browns team, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, a couple of that stuff. Wyatt Teller, I want to ask him a little bit about him. That was my main reason for having him on. He's going to jump on the show next week. And then, the new set here, I'm building it. There's a lot of good stuff here. If you notice here, this is a gift I got from my last, I was at my last job, a buddy of mine that was leaving the UFC. He knew my favorite movie was The Matrix. It's a little Neo. So it's really awesome. I'm going to be adding little cool things to the set. If you have any ideas, let me know. I think we got some 26 shirts coming. I want to make sure that we're repping them as well. Because our guy, Del Reed, who came on the show last week, was awesome. For Ryan Talbot, I am Matt Parrino. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This was an awesome show with a lot of great stuff from Joe and LaShawn. And we will see you on Sunday after the game. Take care, everyone.
Ready for football? With every game a home game, Tops is ready for you with its TV a Day giveaway. For 6 weeks, every day you shop is a new chance to win a massive 70-inch 4K TV. Shop Tops for the best deals in town, in-store, or online to win.